I'm Shauna Harper from Pivot Magazine, and I'm excited to welcome you to Pivot Magazine's podcast show, where we love to share the stories of Canadian entrepreneurs at different stages of their business. So normally in the past 6 months, we've been interviewing different lead entrepreneurs of the startup communities across Canada. Startup Canada believes that the initiatives that all need to be entrepreneurial-led to build resiliency within a community. But of course, with every rule, there is an exception. And for this month, we actually have Alan Strout from Startup Smithers. But Alan is not an entrepreneurial lead, but instead, he's actually the lead of the feeder organization called the Bulkley Valley Economic Development Association. They help to build their resilient Smithers community with a shared vision of economic development. So welcome, Alan.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start off with giving, I guess, our listeners perspective of Smithers, letting us know kind of the size of it, because I think that's really kind of where this conversation needs to start.
The town of Smithers has approximately 5,500 people. So we are by far the smallest and best community in Startup Canada.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted you to kind of say the size is that I think it makes sense why an organization like the Bulkley Valley Economic Development Association can have so much impact in building the startup community, similar to an entrepreneurial lead. Is that true?
I think so. I think it's easier because you come across the same people over and over and over. I mean, the entrepreneurs I see at the farmers market, our kids play soccer together. It's a small community, so it's much easier to form those relationships that lead to further entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the, I guess, obstacles to size is that you need to be, I guess, really creative in getting resources to your entrepreneurs so that they're able to succeed. But size should never limit creative ideas. And what I love is that the city I'm in, Prince George, which is a town of about 80,000, actually turned to you guys to learn about how to leverage an organization to create a co-working space. Can you explain to our listeners how Startup Smithers created a co-working space without having to create a company or a society for their startup community? Because that's a lot of communities want to build a co-working space, but they kind of stuck because the entrepreneurs are all thinking, I run my own business. I don't know if I want to create another company or a society just in order for me to be able to work with others.
Right. The BVEDA thought that, there seems to be a gap in the market here between people who work from home and people who want a professional setting but don't want to pay anywhere from $1,000 and up per month fee of having a professional office setting. So we were like, well, if we purchased some desks in a space and had it within the BVEDA's own office, that would probably work. So the core funding that we get as an economic development office covers all of the overhead for the co-working space in Smithers. It's right in my office. I'm looking at it right now. We have one person in there. You're really battling it out on a Friday afternoon. We just thought that we could fill that need. So what we did is we went to the local Community Forest Corporation and we asked for a grant. It cost about, I'd say $5,000 to get it up and running. We also wanted to make sure that it was a minimum viable product. We didn't try to make it the be-all and end-all of office spaces. Our space has 4 desks. We provide free Wi-Fi, lockable drawers, and that's it. Mm-hmm. We don't provide printing. We don't provide phone. We don't provide bells and whistles that we deemed unnecessary. And because of that, we're able to keep the cost very low. We only rented the spaces out monthly for $150 a month. It's a tiny revenue stream into the BVEDA office, but when there's no extra overhead to take care of, we don't need to charge a great deal.
That's just such a simple model. It really is kind of your version of what entrepreneurs bootstrap all the time. And it's great to see organizations being so creative and doing that, because I know our community obviously isn't as small. However, trying to convince people that in a city where everything is 5-10 minutes away, people can work from their homes. So there really isn't a need for them necessarily to get an office. But so many of the synergies happen in offices. So I think it's brilliant that you decided to create that out of your office so that there's an affordable entry level and startup companies can start to collaborate with each other.
Absolutely. And we totally followed the market as well. We didn't decide to open this until we had 75% of the desks leased out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we made sure we had customers before we engaged in this operation.
Perfect. Lean startup model.
Exactly. Find customers, then go do something.
Yeah. So can you describe, I guess, the entrepreneurial landscape? I know you have a mountain there and there's different industries. What is the landscape, I guess, of your economy in Smithers?
Well, that's an interesting question because in northern BC, often everyone is lumped into a hewer of logs or, we'll use makers of aluminum in Kitimat or some sort of industrial setting. We're the one town we feel that isn't. We have an abnormally highly educated workforce here because most people choose to live in Smithers rather than have to live in Smithers. We have a great deal of our population imports money into our community by working remotely for whatever organization they work for. This lends itself well to having people be able to take advantage of the natural amenities in our area and also take advantage of the long-standing tradition of entrepreneurial spirit in our town. Our town is 100 years old last year, and we have had inventions, worldwide inventions, the most obvious one being the egg carton, the one we all know and love, was invented in Smithers in 1911.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Joseph Coyle solved the problem between two communities with a farmer who kept shipping his eggs to a local hotel, and they came back broken, and he solved it.
We have a problem. We need to solve it.
That's right. Wow. And he took away a pain. He took away a pain in the market, and now we all have cardboard egg cartons.
Wow.
And whatever other way you move eggs these days. Wow. We also have 4 head offices who employ hundreds of people across Canada, and some even internationally. In our town of 5,500 people, which is an extreme anomaly in northern BC. That again lends itself to the entrepreneurial spirit of our community. These are 4 different sectors who don't really have anything in common with each other, other than the owners who started the companies wanted to live here.
Wow.
So it's just the landscape is that it's no one's dream to go get a mill job after high school. Yeah. It's to go and start a business. It's to go. I've seen other guys and companies grow. I think I can do that, and so people try that.
So maybe to the listeners to describe kind of what the attraction of Smithers is. Then it's obviously more than just being able to do your own job. It's the mountains and what else is there that I guess the beauty is what I've heard.
Obviously we live in a very attractive community, and people around us, are let's say, I don't want to say jealous, but we make no apologies for where we live.
We're jealous.
We have the most vibrant downtown core in northern BC, and that is because Smithers holds itself to a higher standard. We have a 2.5 times the national average of doctors, again, who are attracted here, and it just keeps building on itself. So as more people hear about our town, it encourages more people who have, let's say, who are highly skilled, such as doctors, to hear about our town. They visit our town. They say, "Hey, I could do my job here," and it's a positive feedback loop, and it encourages our town to grow yet maintain that high standard.
Oh, fantastic. So we'll get back to the startup side of things. What are you the most proud of, I guess, that's happened in the startup community in Smithers?
Well, I think that definitely the co-working space was one. And I think that the coming together of leaders was another. I mean, when we first started this back in, I think February of 2012 was our first meeting of interested entrepreneurs who thought about, who heard about this and thought it might be a good idea. We had, I think, 15 interested entrepreneurs. And for a community of 5,500 again,
that's pretty high.
That's pretty impressive.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
People who just wanted to see the town grow. They really bought into the principles of Brad Feld's Startup Communities book, and we try to live our entrepreneurial lives that way through those tenets.
Fantastic. So you are the smallest community of the Startup Canada family. Why did your town decide to join? Because Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I think we had a lot of the pieces in place. It just never had a focus, right? We had the culture of entrepreneurship. We had the people who cared enough about the community to give back. We had just the attitude was right, and it fit our town's model.
And so do you recommend communities your size join Startup Canada?
I think it's you need to establish leaders in your community before you join Startup Canada.
That's a great advice.
It'd be a much easier track if to those listening who want to start in a smaller community, make sure you have the people who are there, who will lead, who will take advantage of the programs, who will participate in events. I think you should define your market that way before starting down this road. I think you'll get a much more rewarding feeling out of it, and Startups Canada will be much more beneficial to your community.
Great advice. What makes, I guess, Smithers, your startup community? I know you participate. You do send some members to our Prince George Startup Weekend. But what are the local events that you have that really, I guess, help you build the community that work?
We try to keep Startup Smithers as organic as possible. So we don't do too many formal events. We do a couple of tech talks twice a year, just featuring someone who's doing something interesting in their basement. It could be, the latest one we had was James Fisher of Paranormal Skis. He hand-built downhill skis, or touring skis, in his basement, and he was making them by hand.
Wow.
And he was like, man, this is taking forever. So he developed his own CNC machine, which carves out all the materials needed to create, and through an AutoCAD program. But he was doing that all in his workshop.
That's
and
incredible.
it's those kinds of stories that we tried to get out there.
Yeah.
That people are in the community know that these things are sort of happening, but they can't put a face to it. They don't know the person who's actually doing it.
And probably the details,
so we
too.
Try to get that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, we always get an experienced entrepreneur to talk about their experiences growing their businesses. For example, we had Walter Bucher of Raven Rescue. Now, Walter is the top swiftwater rescue trainer in all of Canada, and he lives in Smithers.
I've heard of him, actually. We came across him here, and I ended up Googling his company. I didn't realize what a national presence he actually has. Just because he had said he was from Smithers, and I thought, it's just a small company, and just amazed at how large he actually was. So
he does work all around the world for all sorts of different organizations, and he gave us stories such as, there were times when his businesses was smaller, and he had heard customers saying, "Hey, can I buy gear from you?" And he said, "Absolutely." He had none, but he went and got it and then sold it to them. That's identifying a need and then taking advantage of the opportunity.
Perfect entrepreneur there.
There you go.
So one of the last questions I want to ask, because we actually have an organizational lead on our call today, what do you think makes a successful partnership between an organization like yours and then the startup community lead? How do you think startup community leads kind of across Canada can help to nurture those relationships? Because you have a very tight relationship because of your community size, and a couple of them I know work in your co-working space. But what advice would you give, I guess, to other startup community leads? How can they nurture that relationship with their organizational leads?
I think that from a feeder standpoint, feeders have to remember that they're feeders and not leaders. And it's an all too familiar problem that organizations try to lead things because it looks good for one reason or another, but they don't have the entrepreneurial buy-in from a leader, and oftentimes those things can fall flat. From a leader point of view, I think leaders need to realize that offices such as mine, all sorts of different organizations out there, are willing to help with stuff that they want done. And one of their biggest concerns is that if they throw an event, that no one will come. I think if you had a leader who could generate interest in an event that a feeder could support by, organizing the space, coordinating speakers, whatever it may be, they judge success by how many people attended.
True.
So feeders rely on leaders to generate interest. Leaders can rely on feeders to do the support tasks needed to put on a successful event.
That's fantastic advice. And I know that we found that in our community, that what we do best is rallying up the people. But because of capacity, actually organizing the events or getting the venues or the sponsorships, that's where we need extra help. And we've been able to partner with our organizations. So thank you. Thank you again for joining us today, Alan. I hope the communities your size and even smaller see the opportunity to look at growing a startup community and pulling together their entrepreneurs. I know that I definitely have always had my eye on Smithers, and now more so than ever, you're talking about your downtown and how scenic the city is and how many remote people you have working as well. I definitely have you guys pegged as the Boulder of Canada, hopefully.
Well, if we could accomplish 1% of what they have, I would be getting high fives up and down Main Street.
No kidding, no kidding. So as for our listeners, thank you for tuning in again. And don't forget, you can always download an MP3 version of our podcast and re-listen to it while you're at the gym or making dinner or on your drive home for those that actually have a commute. And make sure you subscribe to Pivot, as this month we'll be featuring some more fantastic startup stories like the Raven one from Smithers and from all over Canada as well. So thank you again, Alan.
Thank you.